There you go.
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Phixated podcast. I am your host, Mike Aslina, and I'm joined by a guy who I'm so grateful for around the holiday season. Regz, happy holiday season.
Right back at you. You're too sweet to me. You're too sweet.
I mean, we have now half of our lives have celebrated the Christmas holiday together. Can you believe that?
No.
In some fact, not like together,
No,
like sitting next to each. We don't share a tree, like not like that. But like, I mean, in college we did.
That's right. That's right.
But like our, 18 years now, we've known each other for the holiday season.
Isn't that nuts that that's what we went into school? That was the age we went into college.
Mm-hmm.
And now that's how long we've known each other.
And here we are. Knowing what and you listen, if you're picking up the show just now, or maybe you're re-listening to this episode in about 5 months, I don't know, or you're watching it on YouTube and you're wondering, why does Azzy look like he, is an Eskimo? For those of you that have not listened to the show before, my basement is freezing all of the time. I do have this like nice little stove that I could turn on. It's a gas stove next to me. I choose not to. I just bundle up, put the beanie on, and we record. But this is how you know it's the winter season and the holidays are here, based on the Phixated podcast. I am layered.
It's also it's also a plug for the merch.
Yes.
Look, it looks great. I need to get another hoodie, actually.
I actually might get the black.
That's a good call.
With the white. Yeah, I think that's probably it.
That's a good call.
It's legit. I think I'm gonna go with the black this year. But Regz, let's talk a little bit about the holidays when we were in college. So by this point, we would have probably been out, right? I feel like I
just saw a tweet from like E-Town that like said, "See you next semester" or something. So
yeah, I feel like this week was finals all the time, like that first week of December, and then you don't come back until like the second week of January.
Yeah.
Which is wild, like considering
that
there's a month-long break in between the two semesters, which is just insane. But that did not stop us from celebrating the holidays. We just celebrated them very early.
Yes.
During our time at E-Town. We were talking before the show about some of the things that we did. We were laughing. And I think one of my favorites was our sophomore year. We lived in Ober, and we lived on a floor with the baseball guys and us, right? There were six of us.
Yep.
And the baseball guys. At that point, Ryan lived in another dorm, but we would sync up someone would stand in the hallway and yell, count down off 3. And on 3, we'd all hit play on our computers, and all of our speakers would blare Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays by NSYNC. And we would do that daily.
Yeah.
And it would just be like 20 19-year-old dudes in the hallway singing along with Justin Timberlake.
I mean, our generation was the boy band. Like that's what we grew up with. You couldn't get away from it. And I think when you remember when boy bands first came out, it wasn't cool to like boy bands. If you were a guy,
still liked them.
I'm with you. Still liked them, but it wasn't like the cool thing to do.
Right.
In like middle school and high school. Yeah. But then you get to college and, you just kind of said, F it.
That's right.
I love this stuff. And you find like-minded people. And it turned out that all of us were into it. And
I was not at all like concerned about it. Right. Like I loved boy bands, that song specifically.
You want to hear a hilarious story?
Please.
So in middle school, we had to, for music class, you had to write like a little whatever it was, report, synopsis, whatever it might be, about a song. And being my mother, I was not allowed to listen to anybody cool, like no rap, things like that, nothing that had curse words in it. Again, this is middle school, so what am I, 14? 13. Nothing cool.
14, yeah.
So ultimately, I pick a Backstreet Boys song. And I do my little, you have to get up in front of the class and play a clip of the song and then talk about the song. I can't remember what song it was. I wish I could. But I just remember getting made fun of quite a bit for my song being a boy band song. Like even back then, Azzy wasn't there to like be there in solidarity with me. But
I would have put up a fight. I would have put up a fight.
Yeah.
Like, come on, like these dudes can sing, they can dance, like all across the board.
Yeah.
They are. Come on, get off their backs.
But look, that's like that memory is burned in my brain from
for sure,
from the ridicule. And
for sure,
I did not enjoy confrontation. I don't enjoy it now, but I was much less so back then.
I mean, I have a T-shirt that literally says "boy bands, boy bands, boy bands, boy bands, boy bands" on it because I think they're awesome.
Well, look,
and
it
I've
changed
seen
so much that we literally got up on a stage of people and you did a medley of boy band things.
It was JT.
Oh, right.
the
Well,
years.
again, but a boy band
The
person.
ultimate boy band.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we
I
all
did.
helped you with
I
that.
did. And we were all pumped about it. We had a blast with it.
That's what I mean. Everyone loved it.
It was very well received. It was very
was.
well received. But that was one of my favorite like holiday thing. Like, and it didn't become a tradition because we only lived on that floor.
Yes.
It sort of became a tradition, like with us, like we still played that song when this time of year rolled around. It was probably number 1 and 60 on our holiday power hour.
I'm sure.
I think it probably snuck.
They might have even mixed it in. Like, yeah, just for fun.
Because we loved it so much.
Yeah.
But we made sure that we celebrated the holidays, even when we moved into the house, right? Like we still did stuff.
Did we ever stay? I would imagine, did we stay longer at the house? Like, did we stay an extra week or two? I can't remember. I don't see why we wouldn't have.
We might have. I don't know if everybody did. I think like some people went home. I know that before we let out, we did have like the holiday, like we did the ugly Christmas sweater thing.
Yeah.
Classic. And had I mean, it was classic. It was easy. It was an easy one. I don't think we did senior year because we didn't really have a lot of stuff at the house senior year because like we had the one bad situation, and after that we shut it down and really just kept it to like.
That's true. We kept it very close knit after that.
Family and friends after that.
Yeah, you had to
family and friends.
You had to be in the know. What was the one night? Oh man, that just sparked my mind. What was the one time where like we were on campus for something and we were in the cafeteria? I don't remember if it was junior or senior. It might have been senior year. And some people came up to either you or you and I, like we were sitting together with a couple of us, and they're like, "Oh, like we heard you guys are having a party tonight." And we all looked around at each other because I think there was at least 4 of us there.
Yeah, I remember this.
And we were just like, "What are you talking about? Like, what do you mean?" And they're just like, "Yeah, everyone's saying that you guys are having a party tonight, right?" And we were all looking at each other like, Phil's here. He's probably the main culprit who would say something like that and be joking and just would enjoy the chaos that would happen. And we're even looking at him and he's like, "Guys, I didn't do anything this time." He's like, "I really didn't do it." And after that, it's like you go to Stein because he would be the next culprit to do something like that. And then really after that, like none of us would do that on purpose outside of those two. And we're all just looking at each other like, what are they talking about?
It just sort of became its own thing. And honestly, if I'm thinking of the same time, I feel like we just leaned into it and threw a party.
Well, yeah, you didn't have to convince us very hard. You know, like you didn't have to really push us to do it one way or the other.
We were like, I think like once we realized that it was kind of,
a thing, the
momentum was already there.
Right.
We were like, okay, well, cool.
Yeah.
We'll do it. See you later.
I don't know if that was before or after.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we kind of came back out of it like the second semester of senior year. We were at that point, we were like, let's go.
Yeah.
And then we did like all those random theme parties and, really went for it. But the ugly Christmas sweater stuff was fun. The holiday power hours were fun. But you're right, Regz. Usually when you'd just be sitting there and you'd find out that you're having a party without anybody. I mean, yeah. I mean, that I think it probably happened more than once, and we're just, that time specifically, though,
That
I
time
remember.
specifically just sticks out like really
Mhm.
vividly. Again, I can't remember who we were talking to,
I
but
don't even think we were talking to anybody. I think it just kind of became whispered down the alley, and one of us heard that we were having a party. Like, no one specifically said to us,
maybe that's
"You're
what
having."
it was.
I think that's what it was. I think we were just sitting there, and someone was like, are you guys having a party?
Yeah.
Like, we heard you're having a party. It wasn't like, we'll see you at the party. It was just sort of brought to us.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, cool. Yeah, I guess we will. It's fine. We'll do it. Oh, the good old days, Regs. The good old days. But now, look, we're 36. You're a dad. I'm a right old. I sip on Yingling flights and water between each sip now.
What would those kids think of us now? What would those two young whippersnappers in their ugly sweaters think of us now?
I can tell you right now that if you would go back in time and 18-year-old Azzy could meet 36-year-old Azzy, I feel like they'd both have a lot of questions about life choices.
Yeah.
Yeah, life choices. And that's okay, right? That's what those formidable years are for, buddy.
I think I would just look back at that kid in awe. Like, man, you can do that, huh? Because I can't do that. I can't do that anymore. What we used to do.
No. 0% chance I could do the things now that I did in college.
No.
And I honestly, Regs, 10 years ago, I don't know that I could do the things that I did in college. Like,
Yeah.
even as a 26-year-old, I don't think I could have done
I think
it.
I would just be fascinated. Like, I would just be sitting back watching and be like, man, he really gets up the next day and goes to class at like 9 o'clock in the morning and then runs it all back. That same, like, just right back on the horse the next night.
Yeah. And then there were days where I didn't go to class and still did just fine.
Yeah.
But I would be the same. If I could be a fly on the wall or be able to watch myself in college, I'd have a lot of questions and really just be confused as to like how I made it out and how I am where I am now.
Yeah.
So that is a thing. That's a thing. Here we are.
Gosh, I don't know how we used to do it. I really don't. I really don't.
I to this day don't know, buddy. So it is the miracle of miracles, some would say.
The miracle of youth is really what it is.
The miracle of miracles. Also a miracle of miracles, Regs. Kelly Oubre played last night. he came back from getting hit by a car before Ben Simmons came back.
I love the random Ben Simmons shot out of the dark. That's hilarious. Oh my gosh,
welcome,
that's fantastic.
ladies and gentlemen.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Kelly Oubre dropped 12 last night in his return. Really good to see him back.
Yeah, it's you saw obviously when Batum and him were out, there was a huge difference in this team.
Yeah.
Getting Batum back was enormous, but you still kind of felt that they were still missing something. And Fritz brought this up a lot on like Clap Your Hands on that podcast he does with Elliot about the Sixers. That like Kelly Oubre was averaging 16 points a game when he went out. Like that's not nothing.
Yeah.
So when we would think that maybe the offense is a little stagnant or maybe they're not scoring quite out or how they're used to, like when you're missing a 16 point a night guy, like it's something. And his length and speed and versatility like made a huge difference. Obviously he wasn't perfect, but
double digits isn't anything to sneeze at.
No.
You know? It's nothing to sneeze at. No, he's not a perfect player. He's a fine defender. He's long. He's athletic. He's something that they miss when he's gone.
Yeah.
Because they don't have a ton of it. Batum, I will tell you one thing that besides just the veteran presence and the shooting ability, he's a really good passer. I don't think I realized, obviously you don't really watch him play a ton, being that he was out on the West Coast. But he's a really good passer. He might be one of their best entry post passers that they've had in since Joe's been here.
Mm-hmm.
Like for sure since Joe's been here. Just really smooth, really quick, doesn't hesitate. Instincts are really solid. So again, another guy that you miss when went out for stretches. So they, they were missing two really important pieces when they kind of had that little lull,
Yeah,
which didn't put them a whole lot back because they're currently in fourth right now, 2 games behind Boston in first, a game behind the Bucks in second, and a half a game behind the Magic of all
that's
teams,
right.
tied in the loss column with the Magic. And have a little bit of they have a chance to gain some ground here over the next week. They have 3 or 4 games against some bottom feeding teams that they should be able to hit like 3 or 4 to get there. I mean, Joe continues to do Joe stuff. He dropped a 50 burger last night. They needed it to beat the Wizards.
Yeah.
Weird.
I think the only thing I keep thinking with this team is that even despite the addition of Batum and Oubre, and just length that they've desperately needed on the wing, like they're still not a great defensive team.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is maybe Embiid conserving himself a little bit on the defensive end. Like we know Tyrese isn't that great of a defender yet. Like he's just not there yet.
Right.
Like Batum is on the older side, so he's not he's good, but he's not shutting down really good wing players like one-on-one. He's just not there anymore.
Not him, right?
Toby's a fine defender, but he's kind of the same way, like even being a little younger. And I think Oubre, despite his length and athleticism, like they're not shut down wing defenders.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when you play teams that have great scoring guards, like say what you will about Jordan Poole, like the dude can fill it up when he wants to. And even though he's on this terrible Wizards team, like even Kuzma can score a lot when he wants to.
He's always been a good scorer.
So despite what the athleticism and the length brings, like how much it has helped the Sixers defense, they're still not a good defensive team.
Correct.
Like they give up a lot of points.
Correct.
Like a lot.
Yeah.
And I just think it's unfortunate because we still don't know. Again, I'm thinking very far out with this thought, so like, forgive me, but it's a little concerning given that we haven't seen this team yet, but the Sixers' MO in the playoffs is like their offense shuts down.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're relying on just outscoring the opponent, the playoffs is about defensive stops. It's not like you don't get a bunch of 130 to 137 games in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen.
No.
And so I'm maybe hopeful. Like we've seen Nurse, like he sees this stuff. Maybe he's just trying to, I don't know, he's still maybe trying to figure out the best defensive scheme for them. Like, and even then, even if he puts a few things in, who knows if like they're just not a good defensive team. They're just not. So it's just one of those things that even when you look at Milwaukee and Boston as like, and even Orlando is an unbelievable defensive team.
Yeah, they're super young and athletic.
Yeah. But even so, like those guys play hard and they understand what they're doing, and they're just like a really good defensive team.
Right.
And Milwaukee and Boston are great defensive teams.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just something I'm keeping my eye on if there's a time when either Nurse figures out some kind of system or like, I don't know. I'm kind of waiting to see if there's a stretch where maybe we can like win 115 to 100. Like, can we keep people at like 100 instead of like 120 or something like that? Like, is there a stretch where maybe we play some decent teams and we're holding them to like maybe 98 points? Like I get it in today's NBA, you're not holding people to 87 points anymore. Like it's not the 90s, with the Pistons and like holding teams to 85 points and things like that.
Crap out of each other.
So like I get it, it's not that. So taking into account what today's NBA is,
yeah,
I would just like to maybe see a 98 or 100, or something like that. It
Yeah.
just seems when we get in these close games, it's like 120 to 127 or 122 to 128. Like it's just a lot of points we're giving up.
So just to your point, let me just run through November. Okay. Beat the Raptors. Toronto scored 99 points. Beat the Suns. They scored 100 points. Beat the Wizards. The Wizards scored 128. Beat the Celtics 103. Pistons 104. Beat the Pacers 126. Lost to the Pacers 132. Lost to the Celtics 117. Beat the Hawks 116. Beat the Nets 99. Beat the lost to the Cavs 122. Lost to the Wolves 112. Beat the Thunder 123. Beat the Lakers 94. And lost to the Pelicans 124. If you notice, though, the only game that they lost while giving up less than 110, actually, Regs, there's not a game where less than 110 and lost. They won every game that they gave up less than 110.
Yeah.
So that I think that shows your point,
Right.
right there. Doing it consistently, I think in the regular season, you're right, is very challenging. I do think that it could be a very different team in the playoffs in that regard. Like that's one thing, and you know how I feel about this. I've made this comment on here before. That's one place where I feel like Joel always plays like his toughest. The dude's flying all over the place, trying to block shots, trying to do as much as he can. And as much as we give Ben Simmons crap, he was a really good defender.
An all
Arguably,
defensive team defender. Like
yeah,
first team all
arguably
defense. Yeah.
one of the best we've ever seen in our lifetimes, coming through Philly in that regard. I mean, Rocco used to be one of the better defenders in the league for a stretch when he was younger. He's not the same guy. I agree, and I think it's a great point. We talked about Toby and Toby's ability to lock down at times. We talked before the show, and Toby is they're a +4 with Toby on the court right now and a +16 without him. And some of that could be the offense, but I also think you're right in the sense he's lost a little bit of a step defensively even since last year. So, man, I'm really at a place with this team. Basketball is so interesting because I feel like baseball, even with us, we are so week to week, game to game. And obviously with football, you have to be. But I feel like with this team, we would just kind of wait it out. Like we talk about him and we talk about the things we like, the things that are bothering us, like the defense, the defensive piece. But the NBA is such a wait and see league, especially the Eastern Conference right now. I feel like, we've seen the Sixers play with both of the top teams in the Eastern Conference to this point. The games they've lost to the Celtics have been without Oubre and Batum. So, and actually, didn't they not play Joel and Ty in their most recent game against the Celtics? I'm pretty sure at least Joel didn't play that game. It
Yeah,
was
there
the
was
beginning of December.
Yeah, there was a game where he didn't play with the Celtics.
Maxey and Embiid both did not. Neither did Batum. Neither did Oubre. The last time they went to Boston, they lost by 6. So 3 starters didn't play in that game. And actually, I believe that was the game Tobias only scored 14. Yeah, Pat Bev scored 26 in that game.
Yeah.
He was their leading scorer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look.
So just for context, the Sixers are 17th right now in defensive rating.
Middle of the pack.
Yeah.
Yeah, middle of the pack. Okay. All right, something to keep an eye on. I love that you brought it up because it wasn't something that I really thought.
Yeah, again, they're not a team that's going to hold teams, like you said, under 110, around 100-ish every game of the regular season. They're not like this lockdown defensive team. It's not going to happen.
Correct.
I just would maybe I would just like to see it more consistently.
Yeah.
Instead of it being maybe like there's a stretch where like they're, like you said, they're giving up 130 to the Wizards. You know what I mean? And then like, and I get it that Lakers game was really weird, but I doubt they hold the Lakers to 94 points very often if they played them 10 times.
You're right.
For context, they're 6th in offensive rating. So like that's
okay.
You know, I feel like that's a pretty good tale of this season so far. I'm not, again, and I think that shows like they're not the worst defensive team, which is good.
No.
They're certainly, I think, improved from last year. And that is a lot. That is based on the better athletes they have at the wing positions now and the ability to like sub them in and out and get, you know, the same type of guy in and out of the game more often than they could last year.
Yes. And I think if you could get that number defensive rating into like the top 12.
Yeah.
Right? Like into the top 12, like to 14, you probably feel even better. Because I think that more so that top end of the top half of the league is probably where they need to be if they're going to win that, if they're finally going to get past the second round in the postseason, which please, one time.
You want to hear something crazy?
Please.
The Minnesota Timberwolves are number 1 in defensive rating and offensive rating.
Yeah, well, they're playing really well right now.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy, though?
Yeah, it's not a team that I would have guessed. If you would have made me guess, I wouldn't guess them.
Yeah, they're tied for... Or it's tied for second in offensive rating. No, number one. Number 1 in offensive rating. Look at that. That was right.
Number 1.
That was
yeah,
right.
I mean, they are 16-4.
Crazy.
They're a very good team. They're a very, very good team. They a lot of younger dudes who are starting to play well, and then they have a little bit of they have that little balance of a veteran presence with, you know, like Karl Anthony Towns, right? Gobert's there. Conley's there. So I forgot Shake was there.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Shake's over there. And of course Anthony Edwards, that kid's a star.
Yeah.
That kid is a star. All right, well, we'll check back with the Sixers this coming week. They have an interesting week coming here where I think they can make a little bit of a dent in what's going on ahead of them. And again, it's early. Like you're a quarter of the way into the season, which is still kind of crazy. You're a quarter of the way.
I know, isn't that wild?
It's unbelievable. We didn't really start talking about them until now last year, so we're ahead of the game right
That's true. That is true.
Because we were so busy talking about the Phillies. And the Birds, but really the Phillies. So, you know, we're gonna jump into them now. And I mean, look, we spent a lot of time talking about Juan Soto the other night. Soto's been traded to the Yankees. I think for me, looking at that deal, I'm happy it wasn't us. Not from a talent perspective. I don't feel like they got fleeced. I just feel like it's a lot of players for a rental.
And and again, from what some people are saying is like he's gonna go into free agency.
Oh, it's not a possibility. He's a Boras client.
Yeah.
Like he's going to free agency.
Yeah.
Scott Boras doesn't do not free agency. He doesn't do extensions. Like he's going to free agency.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things about a Juan Soto free agency is literally everybody's gonna be after him.
Yeah.
A 26-year-old dude. So it's anybody's game in free agency because it's not about prospects, it's not about players in return. Which is why I was happy that, you know, that deal's too rich for my blood in terms of what you're giving. I think it was 7 players for 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like, geez.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean the Yankees have other holes, you know, like they went and they got, what do you call it, from the Red Sox earlier
Verdugo, right?
Week. Yeah, Verdugo earlier in the week, which I liked. So I don't know that they, you know, Judge is going to play center field. Aaron Judge played like 13 games in center field last year, and he's hurt all the time.
Yeah, it's a big man in center field.
Yeah, I mean, they got Grisham, so he'll play some center field if you know, something should happen with Judge. But we've seen Grisham. He also swings and misses a lot. But this is not a Yankee podcast. We were just making the context of,
because we literally talked about Juan Soto in the last podcast.
We talked about Juan and getting him here and what that would mean. But we're going to get to, you know, sort of what appears to be the plan at this point. But first, let's talk about a guy who's already here. We mentioned earlier in I think it was like November, it was right after the World Series, about the Bryce Harper extension conversation.
Yeah.
I heard Jason Stark tonight. He was on the Fanatic, and he was talking about, look, this, I don't think this was a Bryce thing. Scott Boras is looking around at like Manny Machado, who had an opt out. And Bryce didn't have one. Bryce just signed a contract. He didn't want an opt out, and that was that. Which begged, you talked about it beautifully when we first brought this up. Like, if you didn't want the opt out, what's the point of an extension? You know? Am I against giving Bryce Harper an extension? No, I will say it till I'm blue in the face. Give the guy what he wants. I don't care. Let him retire here. Give him another 3 to 5 years, whatever. At that point, the luxury tax is going to be so high, it doesn't matter. But it doesn't appear as that this feels like a Boras power, and it's that simple. Will it happen? Who knows? I think they have another extension that they're a little more focused on right now. But I just wanted to put kind of a wrap to that conversation because we left it open. Doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Doesn't mean it can't happen before the year or during the year. But for those who were concerned, wow, Bryce is being, you know, a little selfish here. By all accounts, it sounds like this was his agent, who's known for this sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Doing this.
So this is like what we talked about when you sent me that article in the first place. And I was like, that's cool. But when Bryce actually starts being the one to say this,
correct,
I'll pay attention to it. And it really seems like, do I believe Scott Boras when he says that, yes, like Bryce Harper has expressed to me that he wants to be a Philly for the rest of his career? Yes, I believe that. Because it matches with what the man has actually said in public, the man being Bryce Harper.
Right.
Do I think that Bryce Harper is like dying for an extension this instant? No, I do not. Yeah. Do I think that like if they got in a room with just Bryce Harper, he'd be like, yeah, guys, I do want to stay here. Like, I'd love to work something out that I can make sure that that happens. And I would imagine that John Middleton and Dave Nabrowski could very calmly be like, oh, that's fantastic. Like, we absolutely want to do that. Can you maybe give us like 3 more years to just get it in a better spot of this contract that you've already signed before we do something like that? You know? And here's why here's the reasons that that's really helpful to us. We can continue to maybe get some other players in here. Like, your salary gives us a bunch of, you know, leeway with the number that it's at. Like, just, we are on the same page, man. We never want you to put on another uniform the rest of the time that you play baseball. And I'm completely on board with that. Like, if a guy like Bryce Harper, who is still a superstar, is telling you that he wants to play for your franchise for the rest of his career, sign me up, man. But I just think the timing of everything is just so scummy by Boras. And like, it's such an obvious, like bitch move because he's sad about his client not listening to him about this opt-out. And it just like, every time I see his face in these articles, I'm like, you're a scumbag.
He's got such a hateable face.
Yeah. It's just like, you're just a slime ball, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get it. Like, do I think Bryce Harper deserves more money? Of course I do. The dude has been as advertised since he got to this team. Seriously. Like, besides a World Series, what else could you ask from the dude? He literally came here and won an MVP, like, with a terrible baseball team. And then he's been the one to talk to Trey Turner, to like recruit, you know, in air quotes, other guys to come here. He's been part of setting the culture of this Phillies team that hadn't been to the playoffs for 11 years.
Yep.
Like, I
2 straight deep runs.
Exactly. So like, I think about that all the time, that like how upset we were after the Diamondback series, how upset we were after the World Series. And I just keep thinking, we've been to the NLCS 2 years in a row. We went 11 years without making the playoffs.
Yeah.
So like, this is in this decade and a half of Phillies baseball, this is unprecedented for this team. And I know everyone is upset, and I know they want them, like they want to keep adding people and adding superstars to like get over the hump. But the window's not 1 or 2 years. The window's the next 4 years, maybe 5, depending on someone else you could bring in within that time frame. But it truly is the next 4 years. Like that's your realistic window.
Yeah.
As the team stands right now.
Right. And we know Bryce is such an important part to this, and we're going to talk a little bit more about, why what you just said is so important. But before we do, I want to talk about the other extension piece that we've talked about for probably since game 5 in Arizona, when he came out and absolutely shoved in a must-win game. And then when they lost the series, one of the first things that came out of our mouths was extend that man. And that man being Zach Wheeler.
Yeah.
And it's very clear. It's very evident. According to Jason Stark, I shouldn't say it's very evident, but according to Jason Stark, they want to do this more than they want to. This was more priority number 1 than Nola. 5 years, $100 million for Zach Wheeler back on is highway robbery. It might be the best $100 million contract in the sport.
Yeah.
For what he's given them on the return. And, he continues to be impressive. He's a pitcher now that he's not a The other thing that I find to be really important, and I've talked about it on the show before, is him being around for the return of Andrew Painter. I think that's crucial for Andrew Painter's development.
Yeah.
As a guy who's been through Tommy John, as a guy who's been a thrower, not a pitcher, right? Trying to help Andrew become a pitcher. So, and clearly you want to, and he loves Philly. He's made that very, and wants to be here. Every player who comes here and experiences the city wants to be here. So,
except the guy who made the Hall of Fame, and then we put on the wall.
No comment. So the next step is to extend Zach Wheeler. I don't know what that extension looks like. My guess is 3 years. So you'd have 3 more years after this one, which I believe would put him into his mid-30s.
Well, yeah, he's at least 32, isn't he? He's older than 32. Nola, isn't he?
I think he's 32 or 33. And I know you're checking that right now.
I am, as you hear me clickety-clacking him.
While you are.
He's 30.
That's fine.
He's 33.
Okay. When's his birthday?
May.
So he will turn 34 this season.
Yeah.
So if you sign him for 3 years, he's going to pitch into his year 37. Okay. Again, I don't know that I mind it, because at that point you're hoping you don't need Zach Wheeler to be Zach Wheeler.
Well, I think again, you're paying him for the 2 years.
Yeah.
You're paying him for this year that he's still signed, but then the 2 years after that.
And you're also paying him for everything he's done up to this point. There is some of this that goes to that.
Yes.
Like some of this is, hey, like you've earned this money over the last 5 years.
Right.
You've earned the opportunity to make this money. You've shown what you are, who you are. And he's so good. Every time I watch him, I'm like, how do we have Zach? Like, how are we so lucky to have Zach Wheeler in this part of Zach Wheeler's career? And there are guys who are similar pitchers to Zach Wheeler that still do it at that age. Scherzer's done it. Verlander's done it. There's no reason he can't do it.
I mean, Garrett Cole's 33. He's still doing it. You know what I mean?
So they're the same age, but I'm talking like Verlander's like 38.
Yeah, I feel like I know people bring them up like Verlander and Scherzer. I think those guys are like unicorns. Like we haven't seen a lot of pitchers be 38 and like doing what those guys can still do.
No, but it doesn't mean there can't be other unicorns.
No, of course not. And I'm not saying that, but I think 3 years is like right on the money. I think that's a perfect amount of time.
Yeah.
You pay him what, 27, 28?
Yeah,
per year. So like
I think something in there is fair.
3 for 80, 85, like whatever that is, you know?
Mhm.
And you're
Mhm.
paying him to be who he is for 3 more years, and the last year of that contract is really like a thanks for your service.
And continue to help Andrew Painter become
Yes,
great.
exactly. And again,
And that's
even
fine.
if he turns into if Zach Wheeler is your number 3,
Yeah.
like if Painter turns into your number 1 and
Mhm.
you go Painter, maybe player to be named later, you know, a younger guy they get in some sort of trade or again an acquisition of some kind. And then it goes Wheeler, Nola. Like if that's your 4 pitchers, I don't think you're too mad about that.
No, I think we're fine with that.
Yeah. So, you know, like you said, you're paying him for what he's done. I think again, like you said, 3 years is right on the money. I think that's the perfect sweet spot.
Right on the nose.
Yep. And then you're just hoping that he is who he is for this window for the next 3 years. Like that's what
Mhm.
you need him to do. Same thing with the
Yeah.
Nola contract. Like you need Aaron Nola to be who he is for the next 3 years for sure.
Yes. Yes. And so okay, that brings us to this. So if you all right, we did our ideal all season, and we know that that is not prediction based. It's just if we had the reins, what would we do? Clearly, you know, I went super in.
Yeah.
Um, the Phillies are not. I think we can safely say that right now.
Mm-hmm.
By pretty much everything I read, from Matt Gelb to Jason Stark to Bob Nightingale to anybody who was at the Winter Meetings, every article pointed to the idea that Dave Dombrowski was pretty laid back. He was not having a ton of conversations. He was not trying to, you know, go all in. When he was interviewed, he mentioned the idea that he was approached about a trade, and then Kirkering's name was brought up. He's like, "No, I don't want to do that." And his point was, you know, we have to have some of these younger guys. You know, we have to if we're gonna have the contracts of superstars like we have.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right, Regz. He's 100% correct, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, as I was reflecting on this, as I was, you know, thinking about all this today, the the year they won the World Series, so '07 they got there, they had the superstar firepower. They didn't go and get a superstar.
Yeah.
Like their acquisition during that '08 season, they had a couple of acquisitions. They went and got Brad Lidge, which was turned out to
Turned
be a
out to be
very big
important. Yep.
very big acquisition. They went and got Jeff Jenkins, who was a veteran, like left-handed bat that they thought was going to platoon in right field. Jason Worth ended up winning that job, and
Yep.
Jenkins played here and there. Right? And they went and added a veteran third baseman with a really good glove in Pedro Feliz. And that was pretty much it. They didn't go add any marquee pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when the time came at the deadline, they didn't go add CC Sabathia. They added Joe Blanton. Right? So sometimes all that's needed is that really solid, sound role player. You know, the year the Braves went on their magic and won the World Series, they didn't go and add big names at the deadline. They added Jacques Peterson. They added Jorge Soler.
Yeah.
Right? They added a couple of they added what's his name? The lefty that we constantly talk about, Eddie Rosario. Yeah. And then they added one other right-handed bat, Adam Duvall. They added 4. I mean, and honestly, all 4 of those guys we've mentioned on this show as potential Phillies
Yeah.
This year. But 4 role players. And that was it. And that took them to the World Series. You know, the Phillies have superstars up and down. At 4 different positions, they have guys who are considered superstar names.
Mm-hmm.
They have a couple of younger role players with Marshy and Bomer and Stott. But I think they are just looking at this point to adding to that stable of potential just role players. Now, I still think, they're going to look at pitching depth in the starting rotation. I do believe that they have to replace Craig Kimbrell's 70 innings.
Yes.
That needs to be done.
They still need a right-handed arm in the bullpen.
That could come in the form of a Hector Neris. It could come in the form of Jordan Hicks. It could come in the form of a Stevenson. I can't remember. I think it's Taylor Stevenson, who was one of the better relievers in baseball when he got dealt to the Rays last year. There are plenty of names that you can go and grab, and that have the potential to take those innings on, right? And that's okay. Again, Topper said in his presser yesterday, he's fine without a set closer. They've been able to navigate that. So that's probably the approach. And then when it comes to that left field spot, he was pretty open and honest about, like, it's not going to be Rojas. So, is it going to be, I mean, the Jacques Peterson thing yesterday that's a lot. I don't know. I know, like, all the writers were saying, well, they haven't been in touch with him. So what? You're telling me Jacques Peterson just woke up yesterday and was like, oh, I'm going to post a picture of the Philly fanatic.
Someone mentioned he's a San Francisco 49ers fan, so he might have just been trying to screw with everybody.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know if he's from the Bay Area. He's played there the last 2 years.
He is. He's from, Northern California.
Is he from there?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. Good for him. That's the ultimate troll job.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty good. You made a lot of enemies. So
yeah.
Depending on where you play, that could be not a lot of fun to come here and play, or to come here and visit. I'd still love to have you though. So, but clearly they're going to address that position. It's just not going to be in December. It's going to be January. We're going to do post Christmas shopping this year as an organization, which I think is fine. I think it's fine.
Who do you think starts in left field then?
I think somebody that they grab.
Okay.
Whether it's Adam Duvall.
Yeah.
It could be Jacques Peterson. There are many guys that I'm not thinking of right now that they could go and grab. They could trade for somebody.
Who's that guy from the St. Louis that they said they were starting to let people talk
O'Neill?
about? Yeah.
Tyler O'Neill?
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be somebody like that. I'm of the thought though, like, if there's a lefty available that you can go get, that you can platoon with Pache, fine. Like, not that I love Pache out, playing all those games, but remember, you don't only be playing against lefties.
Yeah.
So if you get Jacques Peterson, he's getting most of the at-bats anyway. But it takes two to tango. So we just have to wait and see. But that's the type of player, man. Like, that's what it's gonna be.
Yeah.
And I guess what I'm getting at is I'm okay with that. This team as constructed won 90 games last year. And let me just remind you of what that 90 games actually looked like. The first 2 months of the season, they didn't have a number 5 starter. They lost every single 5th day for like 2 months because Bailey Falter couldn't pitch. They finally realized Chris Sanchez could. So he ended up stabilizing that part of the rotation, right? So they went 2 months losing every 5th day. They went 2 months without Bryce Harper. And essentially went 5 months without Trey Turner remembering what baseball was.
Yeah.
Right? JT Realmuto struggled for stretches.
Literally the only guy who was good was Nick Castellanos.
But not at the second part of the year.
But that's what I mean. In that first chunk of the year, Nick was fantastic.
Stott was really good too.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. But they were missing Alvarado Dominguez for long stretches. Like, they won 90 games during a year with all of that. So they're hedging their bets that, obviously you get a full year of Bryce Harper. Hopefully Trey Turner is Trey Turner again. You get another step forward from those 3 kids. I think I'm good with it. I'm good with it. At some point, you just can't keep throwing money at it. You gotta bring in some guys that are major league caliber ball players, but are role players. I sometimes lose track of that now because of what we've done the last 4 off seasons.
Yeah.
But that being said, you know,
But
if we trade for Mike Trout tomorrow, I'm good.
yeah, right. But
Go
again,
ahead.
I think, like you said, I think you do that. You make all those signings for 4 years because, and like, this is where you're supposed to be at. You're supposed to be at, we're just trying to fill in the edges
Yep.
and just make those edges as good as possible, knowing what the rest of the roster is.
Yes.
Like, that's why you do all those things. That's why when you look at the starting lineup, 2/3 of it are really good baseball players.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is, man. And then you find things that fill the gaps and you prioritize certain things. Like, you prioritize another really a good right-handed reliever because that's what you need. Like, that's what's going to win you more games than the guy in left field with this team as it is.
Right. Right.
Like, with a healthy Bryce Harper for all year, again, with Trey Turner having been here for a season, and he will be back to himself, I have no doubt.
Yes.
With
For sure.
Bohm being better, Stop being better. You know, Marsh showed us a lot at the end of the year. Like, that dude was one of the few guys that we could rely on for a good at bat in the playoffs when this team was like really struggling. We felt really good when Brandon Marsh stepped to the plate, and I think that's huge for him.
Oddly, the only one we felt really good about.
That's the unfortunate part, but I'm still happy for Brandon Marsh. But like, you just, yeah, this is why you do those signings. This is like where you want the team to be.
Yeah.
Yes, would it be very cool to get like a superstar? Yeah, of course it would.
Yeah.
But
we've done
it's
it
just
the last
not,
few years.
it's just not the reality when you get to the payroll that they're at.
Yeah.
To just like keep adding guys who are making like $24 to $30 million a year. Like, it's just not how it works.
Right. Well, I'm good with the plan. I'm excited to see, you know, the small incremental moves they make to continue to be a contender, because these moves matter just as much. So
yes,
we'll see what happens come January. Clears in the rules. We'll start seeing the Phillies make moves. They're not in a rush right now, and they shouldn't be. The roster is a very good roster. It's a very talented roster. So we'll see.
Yeah, we will.
We'll see. Hey, it's Dallas week, Regsy Boo.
It is. It is.
But before we get to Dallas week, I want to talk a little bit about what I saw on the All 22. I think this is the week that we have to really kind of, you know, I talk about it each week, but I don't think I've watched one this intently.
Yeah.
To this point, at least this season. I might have last year at some point, but this year, this is definitely the most I've watched one. And some things, some highlights, right? And I'll start on the offensive side of the ball. The offensive line has to get themselves going in the run game. You know, I know people want them to run the football, but if it's not going to be effective, you're not going to run it. They carried the ball 9 times, Regs. None of those carries gained more than 2 yards.
Yeah.
It's just not effective. It's not effective. And a lot of it was were missed assignments. They weren't executing. A couple of times, like, Kelsey couldn't get out fast enough when he pulled, which is very unlike him. There wasn't a lack for holes. They were there, but they weren't executing on closing them, or they weren't executing on keeping them. Wide receiver blocking was poor. I saw 2 or 3 AJ Brown blocks that kind of fell apart. So, look, I want him to run the ball too, but it's not there right now. And this team, their identity has been that. They've been road graders.
Yeah.
And it's not working right now. That needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Especially against, you know, teams like the Niners and the Cowboys.
So I've seen a few things about this specifically. And I think the one that I was most intrigued by and I thought made the most sense was trying to get the run game more vertical to allow these offensive linemen to just be like pushers. You know what I mean? Instead of maybe having to go to the side where there's a better chance that someone can slip a block depending on which way the running back goes. And obviously the offensive linemen don't know which way he's going. So they just have to block a certain way and hope that
Yeah, like a
they
zone
could hold
scheme.
it. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
But it was just talking about just getting it more vertical. Like let these guys just like get a push
Yeah.
and like be able to hold their blocks and things like that. I just thought it was I thought it was an interesting point that it's just maybe a way to get them going. Just like rely on their ability to push the guy in front of them and make, and make some holes and just try and like simplify it a little bit. Who knows if it would work. Obviously, when you're playing a defense like San Francisco, who's so fast and just shuts down those holes so quickly, that sort of side to side running scheme doesn't work great because they just fill in so quickly.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know that being more vertical against them would have worked any better. Who knows? They're a very good defense, but it's just something that I thought was a good point based on the fact that Dallas, what they were saying is that Dallas tends to like light boxes and to be more versatile. And so it's just a chance to like just get your big boys putting their big bodies on people and getting people moving.
The other thing about the run game this year that's different than last year is they're clearly protecting Jalen.
Yeah.
He's not even, I mean, it is not Reed. It is basically like it is a pure, and that is different. And clearly the knee is a factor in that, and they're going to have to navigate it as the rest of the season goes. But the run game was the first. The second thing, Regz, is Jalen's got to pull the trigger, man. Like he has to pull the trigger. There were multiple plays. He had someone coming open pretty early and took off. And I'm not sure what that's about because it wasn't him last year. It seems to be trickling back in this year. The eyes are dropping to the rush. He's getting skittish and running. There were a couple of plays that he had Jack Stoll like wide open.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm convinced that if it's Dallas Goedert, he pulls the trigger. For some reason he wasn't pulling it. The Eagles are one of the best one safety high teams in football. But they've seen it a lot less since Goddard went out. A lot less. Because when you get one safety high, like they're trying to pick their poison.
Yeah.
Without Goddard, teams aren't scared. Because teams need to use a safety on Dallas Goedert. You can't use a linebacker on Dallas Goedert. So teams do bring an extra guy down to make sure that he's covered. And if they don't, then Jalen has his matchup that he wants. But teams are playing it less against them right now without Goddard because they're using that extra safety to keep those balls downfield from happening.
Yeah.
The Eagles want to push the ball down the field. They want to throw the ball down the field to AJ and to Devontae. But when there's not a single high, they don't have that look.
Yeah, and then the run game contributes to that also. If you just run it down their throats with a too high look, they're going to change it. They're going to go to single safety and bring someone in the box to try
and that's what
it.
happened against the Chiefs, and that's what happened against the Bills.
Yeah.
And then they could take their shot downfield when they needed to.
Right.
That didn't happen with the Niners.
Yep.
And unfortunately, those are things that teams will try and exploit. Now Dallas is back this week. So that matchup becomes a little more challenging for the Cowboys. They got to decide single high. They played some single high against the Eagles a few weeks back and got beat on some plays. The touchdown to Devontae out of half was single high coverage, and Devontae got one-on-one. And I don't care how good Deron Bland is. You can't cover, and it was a perfectly thrown ball by Jalen. But it's really hard to cover those two guys one-on-one. It's really difficult. So hopefully that changes that a little bit. Let me jump to the defense real quick. And Regz, I'm just going to be really honest with you. I go back to, I understand the Brock Purdy thing. I know people want to like the guy. I want to like the guy. But do we realize all of the yak that came in this game? like all of the yak that came in this game, like truly. The like both of what do you call its touchdowns? Debo's touchdowns. Where one was a screen and one was a 7-yard pass that Brandon Morrow just missed a tackle, straight up missed a tackle. They picked on Eli Ricks quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't great, right? So they picked on him. You know, the one thing that I noticed, and I don't think it's been talked about enough this week. Our guy Sidney Brown did not get a lot of time. And when he was on the field, they didn't gain a yard. On the 8 plays he was on the field, they didn't gain a yard. He was all over the place. He's the type of guy you need because of how athletic he is.
Yeah.
He's the type of guy that really makes their life difficult. Why, after you watch Morrow, and what's his name? He got released.
Ellis.
Yeah, Christian Ellis just get torched possession after possession. Is Sidney Brown not playing down in the box?
Yeah.
Again, he's not a coverage magician, but he's going to give you more than that, and he's a problem for McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to go into to too much detail here. Just know this: Morrow gave up 177 yards passing in coverage. 177 of the 310 yards that Brock Purdy threw for came against Morrow. The next was Christian Ellis. The next was Eli Ricks. Here's the thing that I'm going to tell you. Those won't be the matchups if they play in January.
Yeah.
It's going to be Shaq Leonard, right? It's gosh, I'm having all kinds of problems with names today. Who's the other linebacker that we're getting back this weekend?
Cunningham.
Thank you. I'm having all kinds of issues with names this week. It's going to be Zach Cunningham. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. Avonte Maddox is doing a lot of football stuff right now and could be back, which means that Roby would also move into that Ricks spot.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't be able to exploit Eli Ricks. So they could be seeing a very different defense come January. Now, the Eagles still are going to have matchup issues, but they're not as easy to exploit as Brandon Morrow.
Yeah. I think all that's true. I don't have a
And
lot.
it's Nick Morrow. I keep saying Brandon Morrow.
Yeah.
He's a pitcher for the Blue Jays. It's Nick Morrow. I'm sorry.
Apologies to Brandon Morrow.
Sorry. Yeah, Brandon.
Yeah.
Not you, Nick. I'm apologizing to you.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
I agree with everything you said, and I'm not going to add to it. I just think I also want to point out that the pass rush became a 0 after those first 2 drives.
Mhm.
Like a 0. And something that I heard on the Philly special guys talking about is that like Sweat has played more snaps already than he played all of last year.
Yep.
It's like there seems to be less of a rotation with the defensive ends than there was last year. And it's obviously contributing to, obviously when your defense plays as much as the Eagles has, it's also affecting how good like Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick are. I get it. Like, I don't know why Nolan Smith just can't come in and play.
Yeah, he's
Like,
got.
why not just get?
He's another one stuck out on tape quite a bit.
Why not just get
Sweet.
a young, athletic guy? You needed more speed in that game. Why not just like give the guys a blow, man? Like they have to. Like they've played more snaps than they did all last season.
Yeah.
And we're in week 14, 13.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like
14.
There's a lot of football still to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the rotation has to get better. They have to find ways to just get those guys off the field sometimes. I get it. You don't want to take your best players out, but it's clearly affecting them. Like Josh Sweat is not playing the same way he played in the first couple weeks. He's not. He's been a 0 for the last several weeks. Hassan like has maybe 1 or 2 plays, but that's about it, man. Like he just, it's not the same. Yeah. And I do think as much as we talk about like Jordan and Your name thing jumped over to me. Thanks, Jalen. Thank you. Yeah.
We're struggling.
As much as we talk, I'm not even drinking. I'm drinking water. As much as we talk about the snaps that they're playing and how they're like the most snaps they've ever played of football in their entire lives, like we have to talk about the defensive ends because that's where their pressure came from last year. That's where, like, that's how good those guys are, and it's just they have not been very good. And it's just it's when how the team is set up, if your pass rush isn't doing anything, you don't have the talent in the secondary and at the linebacker position to hold up for very long. I get it that there are ways to maybe make that a little bit better, but it's still not great. Even if like Shaq Leonard comes in, like he hasn't been the same kind of player. We're hoping that at least his instincts are a little better. And
he ranked in like the top 8 of linebackers and pass coverage this year.
I'm not saying that he's not much better than Nick Morrow or Christian Ellis. Like I'm not saying that. But you're not, you know what I mean? Like
yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, but it has to be said that those guys, like they have to figure out a better rotation for those guys to allow them to play at their best.
Yeah. I'm with you. Nolan Smith really popped on this week. He really sets a nice edge. They weren't getting much on those outside runs, those horizontal stretches. They started beating the Eagles down when they just ran it right at the linebackers.
Yeah.
That's when they struggled. They couldn't do anything about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Regz, some of what we're seeing right now, yes, they've played a lot of snaps, but some of what we're seeing, I mean, they're playing teams fresh every week. Like this is the 3rd straight week that they're playing a team who's had extra rest, more rest than
the
they
schedule
have.
Is kind of effing them over right now.
They really got screwed this year on the schedule. I mean, and look, people that are Niner fans or Cowboy fans, they're gonna look at this and say, oh, what an excuse. No, it's not. It's fact. The schedule is bullshit that they're playing this year. It's fact. Like no fan base would be happy if they were playing 3 consecutive teams off extended rest.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. No one can convince me you'd be okay with it. It's bogus. It's not happening to anybody. How did the Cowboys get 2 consecutive games?
I don't know.
I know. His name's Jerry Jones. And he has a distinct advantage when it comes to the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know what he holds over these. But come on, man. Like that doesn't happen. No one gets 2 consecutive. I know one of them's Thanksgiving, but they shouldn't get another one right after it and then get to play the Eagles, who are coming off of 3 games in 10 days.
Yeah.
So some of it is you could just see the wheels come off in the 4th quarter. Regz, it was a 1 touchdown game at halftime. People act like they got boat raced for 4 quarters. They got boat raced for a quarter and a half. Like that's it. So like, you know, when you look at the game in totality, they did not get boat raced for 4 quarters. They got boat raced for a quarter and a half. And if they would have just punched in the damn football on the first 2 possessions to make it 14-0, would have been a very different game because Brock Purdy doesn't want to throw from the Niners could still play their game. They could still play their game down 6-0. They can't play their game down 14-0. So we'll see what happens. This week becomes really important.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the number 1 seed's in jeopardy right now. You cannot go into the postseason with the same amount of losses as the Niners because they. So the Niners have maybe 3 more difficult games left. Like the way they're playing, I don't know if any of them are difficult.
Yeah.
They have on Sunday afternoon, they're a 4:05 game against the Seahawks, who they blew out on Thanksgiving. They go to Arizona, who we're not even going to bother there. They host Baltimore. That I think is like,
yeah,
that's their chance, right? They go to Washington.
Yeah.
Okay. And they play the Rams, who the Rams could still be playing for a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm.
So there's potential for that. So, the Seahawks, again, a division rival coming off a blowout. The Ravens, hopefully, you never know with Jackson because he's sick right now. Who knows what's going to, that guy gets sick and he's out for the year. Happened last year. And then the Rams. And those are your 3 games where you could potentially see the possibility of them losing.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be favored in every game from here on out. So, either if you're the Eagles, you got to win out, or you can afford to lose one more and hope that the Niners slip up somewhere. Now, Regz, am I super concerned if they have to go across the country and play the Niners? No. This Eagles team, they figure out ways on the road. We've seen that the last 2 seasons. But that bye is what I want.
Yes.
I want the bye.
Yeah.
We need to get healthy. We need to get rested. This stretch has been terror and it's not over yet. We got 2 more of these really intense games. And if you win both of them, you're in great shape.
Yeah.
If you win both of these, you're in great shape. So let's start with the one they have coming up. There's not a lot to say, Regz. We know what this is.
Yeah.
We've seen it played once. The Eagles controlled most of the game. They were up 2 scores with, half of the fourth quarter left. And, they are 3.5-point underdogs. The total is 51.5. We're going to get to it in a little bit. We're going to get to the keys and everything. I have thought about this game right? Like the statement game that they have to have. They're all talking like they're good and everything's fine. AJ just walked when he talked about the energy. So they have a chance here to come in and make a statement. To me, this game with a win pretty much decides the division. It's their division if they win, because essentially the Cowboys' schedule is ridiculous from here on out.
Yeah.
So I've looked at it from that lens. Like, what do you need to get up for this game? Well, it's Dallas, right? That in and of itself. It's coming off the worst loss of the Sirianni Hurts regime. That's something. And it's for the division. Like, it's for the division. You win this game and you pretty much lock down the division, and then your focus is on the number 1 seed. So I don't know, Regz, is it one of those things? Is it all the above? Like, what are your keys to this one and who do you got?
I mean, it's all of the above. I don't think they need any reason to get up for this game. They know how important it is. They know what just happened at San Francisco. They've watched the tape. They've seen, like, they've got it. They got kind of slapped in the face. Like, you guys were kind of rubber banding and scotch taping it together for a few weeks. And it all just kind of came back to bite you in the butt in one game. I don't think anybody could say they played particularly well in the San Francisco game.
Lane Johnson. That's it.
Yeah, sure. There you go. Good job, Lane. Good for you. But really, outside of Lane, even from a coaching standpoint, I don't think they were very good.
Nope.
So this was like from top to bottom. This team, you got slapped in the face. And what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to respond? Like, what are you going to do against a division rival, in Dallas? Like, this is your chance to show who you are. I feel like I've said this a lot, but my key to the game is our defensive ends applying pressure. Obviously Tyron Smith is a beast. So like Sweat has another really hard matchup. Like, I know I said he isn't playing well. He's also probably faced the 2 best left tackles in the entire league in back-to-back weeks. Yep. And he's exhausted. Their guards are very good. So Davis and Carter and, Fletch and Milton are like going to have their work cut out for them. Yep. They have very good guards. Like, this is a game you hope Hassan can prove how good he is. Like, maybe force a fumble. Try and get some turnovers. Anything like that.
Yeah.
I would very much hope that the scheme in the secondary is not to put Sidney Brown on CeeDee Lamb in the slot.
No.
And please don't put Eli Ricks on him either. Like, just keep someone good on CeeDee Lamb. If the other guys beat you, like, cool. You know what I mean? Like, fine.
Yeah.
That is what it is. But like,
Yeah.
just make them do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think, yeah. Again, that's my key. Is I
Okay.
really want this defensive line to like show out. And I think that all of that helps everything else on the defense. My prediction is Eagles win 31-24.
All right, you went over.
I did.
I like it. So I have tried to talk myself into them losing every which way. There's all the makings of a loss. Like I've gone every like the Cowboys are ridiculous at home. Like
Yeah.
that's number one.
Mm-hmm.
We've lost the last 6 games to them in Dallas. They have been really good at home this year.
Yeah.
Dak is playing out of his mind right. He's not turning the ball over.
Mm-hmm.
I think he only has 2 interceptions all year. Like he is not turning it over. He looks like Jalen looked last year. He's a man on a mission right now. Their whole offense is. Now their defense just gave up a ton of points to Geno Smith and the Seahawks, so they can be had. My key is to get back to what you do well. And do it well. Like I'm not sitting here and screaming run the ball. I'm sitting here screaming run it better.
Yeah.
Because I think they want to run it, but they're not doing it well.
Mm-hmm.
And the offensive line has to come out and do what they do. They have to be road graders. They have to run the ball. They have to set the stage and open up that ball downfield. So they have to bring a safety into the box. Like get back to what Philadelphia Eagle football is. Like the offensive line is not much different than last year. Like it's one player different, and he's a very talented player. So I'm not sure what it is. I don't think teams are doing anything different in the box to them. I just don't think they're executing as well. So here's the hoping that they do. Because I think if they can run the football, if they can get themselves out there to a good start with the run game, it's gonna open up everything else for Jalen, for AJ, for Devontae, for Goddard, for all of them. So back to what I was saying before. Like I've looked at every possible way for them to lose this game. Like I've almost willed it into existence at this point. But I keep coming back to one thing. This team just refuses to allow the outside noise to get to them. Like Brandon Graham on the radio the other day, good. Like we got our butts kicked. We deserved it. We needed it. It was time. Kelsey saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
The accountability in the room. They just don't listen to the noise, man. And I think if they are listening to the noise, it's the noise that they were frauds all along and that they're the best team in the NFC at this point. I still think that they believe they are. I still believe they are. I think that they win in a really sound fashion. Do you remember a few years back? Well, it wasn't a few years back. They won. They went into Dallas the week before Thanksgiving and just blew their doors off for 4 quarters.
Yeah.
I mean, blew their ever-loving doors off. It was the last game. That's what's going to happen on Sunday night. That's what's going to happen. It was a Sunday night football game. It was in Dallas, and the Eagles came out and just whooped up on the Cowboys. That was the game that Jay Ajayi and had the long run down the sideline, but like got caught.
Yeah.
It's become like that video that we always say. So I think they whoop them. I do. I think it's going to be a statement game from the Eagles. I got 35-14.
All right.
I think they're gonna.
That a boy.
I do. I think it.
Listen, I want nothing else. Like, yeah, give me that.
And Shaq Leonard will cause not one but two.
There you go.
There it is.
You heard it here first, people.
Mm-hmm. Not one, but 2 turnovers for Shaq Leonard on Sunday night. Hey, quick fixated.
All right.
I don't know if you saw the video of Lane Johnson getting announced the nominee for the Eagles for Walter Payton Man of the Year. Did you see it?
Is it the one from like the offensive line room?
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet. I literally just saw it somewhere, but I haven't watched it yet.
You gotta watch it, man. It's
All
super
right.
emotional. Jason Kelsey talks to him. And I wanted to just take a moment to fixate on Lane Johnson. And Lane Johnson, player, he's great. But Lane Johnson, the person. I don't think Lane gets a lot of credit for the things that he does off the field because he does it so quietly. And Kelsey talks about this. Like, he's not out there, look at me, not throwing money at stuff. He puts himself out in a lot of different ways. I don't know exactly what his charity is. I think I want to say it's for people who lost either parents or grandparents. I can't remember what, but when he goes to other cities with people who lose loved ones, and that's what his charity is. But he's also someone who has struggled quite a bit with his own mental health and has been open about it and has been an advocate for many others who struggle with mental health. And I, as someone who has struggled with his own mental health, as someone who ravaged people in his own family, like, my appreciation for him and his ability to not just be vulnerable with it, but to be vulnerable in a way that we can all see ourselves in him. It's not just, oh, I have this. It's, oh, I have this, and here's what it looks like for me. And here's what it feels like for me. And remember to take care of yourself, because that's what you need to be. You're struggling with mental health. Like, I'm so appreciative. You know, we often talk about how lucky we are to have certain players in this city. Names that we usually think: Bryce Harper, Joel Embiid, Jalen Hurts. We've said Jason Kelsey multiple times. I don't know that Lane Johnson gets talked about. He's a future Hall of Famer, but like hands down first ballot Hall of Famer. But he's a Hall of Fame human being too. He's a good dude. And again, one of those people that we're fortunate enough to have in Philadelphia. So fixated on him. Congrats to you, big man, for the nomination. Hopefully you take the title. Last year it was Dak Prescott. Who is also a really good dude.
Yes, by all accounts seem to be. Yes.
I mean, like, Dak Prescott, really good dude. It's hard to be an Eagle fan and like Dak Prescott,
Right.
because talk about going through it.
Yeah.
Losing his brother, losing his all the things that dude has been through. He won it last year, so it'd be nice if Lane could be the recipient this year. He's done so much to bring mental health awareness, not just to Philadelphia, but I think to the NFL as a whole. So
Yeah.
good for you, Lane. We appreciate you and we love you, man.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, man. Well, hey, thanks for hanging tonight.
Always. There's nothing I'd rather be doing.
And thank you all for listening to us on Friday and or whenever you listen. And as you're finishing this up, make sure you click subscribe on the button below us on the screen there. Leave a comment, share with a friend, share the YouTube link with a friend, then go and share wherever you get your podcasts with a friend too. Regz, I don't know if you know this, but I think we have like a Spotify.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, look at us. All 5 stars.
Hey,
Look at us.
that's what we do.
Growing.
That's what we do.
So make sure you subscribe and rate wherever you get your podcasts. And then do not forget to follow us on social media. You can follow us at B&B Podcast on Instagram. You can do the same on Twitter. Also follow us at Phixated. Follow me at the Mic Drop 5 and with. You can follow us at the Phixated fan page. Click the merchandise link in the show description below. Until we talk to you on Thursday of next week, we thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another. Good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And it's Dallas week, bitches. Go Birds.
Dallas sucks.
Oh my God! Deep to right field, way up there and way out of here.
The Philadelphia Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
The 0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.